Hi, on today's program, we're going to talk about budgeting. Yeah, I know you're not real excited about it, but stick around because you're going to find that this is a very important subject. Hi, I'm Gerald Markwith, certified financial planner. This channel is for those under 50 years old. We're going to talk about personal finance, the things in high school and college they should have taught you, but never did. It's important for you to know how to handle your money because that is, in essence, where your future lies. Now, before I get into some of the different types of budgeting and go through a little example for you, I want to talk at a higher level. Budgeting, as I said, it doesn't get a very good rap. It's looked on as a terrible thing, that it restricts you from doing things, that it's not a pleasant job, and things of that nature. But really, budgeting is a reflection of your life, the life you're trying to create. It helps you set goals and priorities. It helps us see where things are going. Let me point out that 86% of the people that do a budget monthly go over their budget. It's a very common thing. And guess where that extra money, how that extra money is spent? Well, it's spent with a credit card. That's something you don't want to do. You want to live a life where your money is taking care of your current needs as well as your future. So let's get into this. There are 5 different ways in which you can do budgeting. Now, let me pause right here before I dive here. You can go online and get a budgeting app. There's a lot of them out there. They'll charge you a certain amount of money to do it. And they'll set up categories for you. They'll automatically figure what percentage you're spending, say, for groceries or things like that. And they're useful. They're easier than what we're going to do with an Excel method. But keep in mind, there's ways of doing this to make it maybe less stressful for you and still accomplish it. But again, there's a price for everything. So let's talk about the 5 basic ways to budget. The first one is a zero-based budget. Basically, what it says here is that if I make $3,000 a month, then I have to come up with $3,000 of spending I'm going to do during that month. Some of it seems pretty obvious, like groceries or things like that, or paying the electric bill. But it may be other things. The 50% is really your necessities of life. If I don't pay this bill, it's going to be hard for me to live. So it's important that you eat and have a roof over your head, a car to drive, things like that. Number 2 is a very popular budgeting called 50-30-20 budget. What that says is that 50% of your money goes towards necessities, 30% goes towards wants, and 20% goes towards savings for the future. So you want to look at this kind of a budget as somewhat flexible, even though we called it 50-30-20. At least it gives you categories that you restrict money to. So in your 50% budget, again, necessities of life, 30% wants, things you desire to get during the month. Maybe you want to go get some extra clothes. Maybe you want to go dining out a few times a month. You just think whatever your want happens to be. 20% goes to you, and that's, of course, for you to save for the future, emergency money, things like that. So that's your 50-30-20 budget. The third one is an old-fashioned one, just as effective, but a lot more, some would say simpler. It's called the envelope method. Here, you get literally an envelope and put money in each one according to the categories you decide. So in an envelope, you might label groceries. Say you put in $300. And in the next category, it's for the electric bill. And you figure, well, that's going to be about $50. Whatever it happens to be, whatever you think you're going to have to spend in that category. Of course, you want to be realistic about this. And once you go through that envelope, say groceries, and you have no more money in that envelope, you're either going to have to find the money out of another category or, well, you're not going to spend any more on groceries that month. That can be hard, but at least you know where that money is. The reason the envelope method is interesting too is because when you literally give money to someone else, so you go to the store and you're buying groceries and you give them $100 out of an envelope, that becomes a lot more emotional than just swiping a card. You really think about that, giving $100 out of your hand. And so that makes you think even more of whether or not what you're purchasing is exactly what you want. The next method is called the pay yourself first budget. And it's exactly what it says. You take a certain percentage off right on the top and say, this is money for me. It could be 10%, 20%, whatever it is. But that percentage of money is mine. No one else's. Doesn't go anywhere else. It's for me. Now, that means the rest of the money that you're budgeting for is going to have to be made up with the rest of it. Say you put 20% of the money to yourself. The other 80% of your income is going to have to be divided up amongst your expenses and things you want to do. So that's called pay yourself first, which again, is certainly a good thing to do. You should want to pay yourself first. You earned it. You should be able to keep it, or at least some of it. And finally, we'll do what's called a goal-based budget. What this says is I'm going to invest my money in goals that I want to reach. Yes, I know I got to pay expenses, but these are the goals, number one, I'm really trying to get to. I want to buy a car. I want to buy a house. I want to retire early. Anything you can think of that's goals-oriented, that's what you would spend first, and then try to work out the bills the rest of the way, adjust as you can. So goals-based is a little bit more like daydreaming, but it says this money's going to have a purpose, but it's for my future good. I'm going to achieve something with this money that I have. All of those methods will work, but just keep in mind, they're not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy because things happen in the course of a month. You know, your friends want to go out to dinner and you realize, wow, I've spent almost all my money on going out to eat for this month. Well, you have to make a decision. Are you going to spend the money and take it from somewhere else, or are you going to say, I'm sorry, I can't really go out this month with you. I've kind of budgeted that money away. So think about that as you're doing different budgeting. All right, so let's do a little bit of a deeper dive on this. Let's do a 50-30-20 budget online. I'll put it here to the side of me and we can kind of go through it. And what I'm going to do, set up certain categories for you to consider. Now, you may have other categories in your budget that I don't show here, and that's fine. Everyone's budget is different. And so you put a 50-30-20 in there, and we use a fictitious income number. It can be whatever it wants. And you set it up and you set categories in there. Now, you've got to be realistic. If your rent is $2,000 a month, that's $2,000 a month. You've got to put in your budget. Groceries is whatever your experience has been. Maybe it's, say, $500 a month, let's say. I want to pause here a little bit when we talk about something like groceries. Think about it this way. When you're buying groceries, are you buying organic? Are you buying the cheapest thing you can get? What are you buying with the groceries? The reason I bring that up is because you could almost consider your grocery budget a little bit like health. In other words, the healthier you eat, the less you have to see a doctor or have future problems. So you might want to think about that when you're doing your grocery shopping and saying, am I spending this money on groceries, which of course obviously we all have to eat, but is it the best kind of food for me and will help me stay healthy for a longer period of time? That's something to think about. Again, some categories you look at and can guess, but you can adjust. You can look at your electric bill and say, well, you know, if I change the thermostat a little bit, maybe I can save a little more money. I don't quite have to put as much into that. Certainly your car maintenance, things like that, that's a given. You have to do that. You have to put gas in your car. But it also might limit how much driving you're going to do. if you say, wow, I'm spending this much money on gas, I didn't know that, I need to stop driving all over the place and stay more local maybe. So you want to think about that when you're doing it. Now your 20% is going to be there for you. That may be your emergency money. Generally, it's recommended you have at least 3 months of savings, emergency savings, just in case you lost your job, let's say. Some will even recommend 6 months. But you want to have money in there. Emergencies happen. Things come up. Car breaks down. Anything is possible here. So you want to have money that's safely put away. And I want to stress the word safely. You're not investing that money. To save that money in case of an emergency coming up. And trust me, things will happen. Life happens. Things will occur. And you'll have money there at the side ready to pay for it in case something occurs. It won't be a crisis that suddenly develops. Now, you want to judge your emergencies carefully. Not all things are emergencies. So you have to kind of decide what that is. But here, you want to look at your budget very closely. When you're looking at a 50-30-20 budget, first you're going to set it up at the beginning of the month. And some of this will be automatic to you. You've already figured out how much is my rent, how much is my mortgage. Those are automatic things you're putting in there. But there's something else you want to consider in this budget, especially in the 50% area, called a sinking fund. Now, what's a sinking fund? That gets kind of different. Well, these are bills that you're going to have to pay in the future, just not this month. Let's take an example. Let's say that you belong to Costco and you have the executive membership and it's $130 a month, but it's not due right away. Every year it's going to be $130 a month. Well, what you would do, take that $130 divided by 12, you put $10.83 away somewhere safe, so that when the bill comes up, you have your $130. You're not having to rearrange your budget in that month that you're due on the membership. It's already there. So you're setting aside a little bit of money in some categories to make it easier for you. It's called a sinking fund, but think of it as future bills, if you will. Bills you're going to have to pay or you want to pay. Obviously, if you don't want to go to Costco, you just cancel the membership. But you want to think about that. Maybe it's Amazon Prime. You got to make sure that I pay my bill for that. Any of those things that you see in the future coming, car insurance, all of that is going to go into what's called a sinking fund. That's not money. It's not emergency money. You want to keep that separate. But when you're doing that, what you're creating is less stress for yourself going forward. Think about things like gifts or charitable things. You want to have a category for that? You might consider it. Birthdays come up, Christmas, anniversaries. You want to have money there to do guilt-free spending and say, I've got the money, do it. That's, by the way, birthdays, Christmas, all these are well known what days they fall on. And so you can plan for those and say, I plan this year to spend $500 for Christmas, as an example. You can budget for that so that when the time comes in December, you have your $500 and you don't have to worry about it. These are all techniques of setting up a budget. And I recommend you do it. Yes, at times you're going to fail. You're going to get upset because you overspent, or maybe you need to take something out of one category and put it in another, or, well, I can't go out to eat like I wanted to, whatever. But by having a budget, you begin to see what the real world is like. You begin figuring out what your goals are, what you're really trying to accomplish with your money. If you don't save money, it's going to be really hard in the future to, say, retire early or retire at all. Now, you might say the basic problem with your budget isn't your expenses, it's your income. Again, you have to go look, do I want to take a side job? How do I want to make more money? How do I increase that income line from what I currently have? Again, there's different ways you can accomplish this. So there's many ways of getting extra money that you probably haven't thought of. But again, budgeting is an essential part of personal finance. I can't imagine you doing personal finance without a budget, without knowing where your money goes, without any idea of where you might cut back or what you might spend more money on. Because this is your life. This is your reality. So in the given month, whatever you do with your money, you're creating that reality. So I hope that you found this helpful. I think it's important, an important subject. We can do a deeper dive on that if you'd like further. I'm going to talk about debts and things of that nature in the future. But think about that. I hope that you enjoyed this, and I hope you have a pleasant day.